Hey there.
We're live.
We are live. Hello, hello, hello. And welcome to the live edition of the Sister-Cousins Candid Conversations podcast, episode 16. Today we'll be discussing the things that they don't tell you about marriage. This should be very interesting. So, Facebook audience, this is our first time going live on a new platform. And so we are testing this out to see how it works. You should be able to interact with us during this podcast live. However, we're not 100% sure how that's going to work. So we're going to be learning this all together. So we're always trying to come up with different ways to different topics that we can discuss, things that are relevant, things that are happening in our lives, things that are happening in the world. And so we kind of touch a lot on marriage in most of our podcasts, or at least a lot of them. And so, everybody talks about the good, the glam and the cool part of marriage, but nobody talks about that other stuff, So we thought that we would take the time to talk about what people don't tell you about marriage. So, I don't know. Anybody want to start? I mean, I know I got a couple of things on my list that they don't tell you. The first thing is, okay, everybody want to live that happily ever after, but honey, marriage is not a fairy tale. It is not for the weak at heart, okay? It is not for those who want to take it out for the long run. So that's one thing. Marriage is definitely not a fairy tale. I mean, you go through good times, you go through bad times, you go through ups, you go through downs. Today, y'all sleeping in the same room in bed. Tomorrow, you sending your husband to another room. You may be sending them on the couch. You may be spending the night at your mama's house. Those are real life situations that happen in marriage. And, we just going to open this thing up for discussion. So I don't know how we want to do this. We just want to kind of go round table, or, how y'all want to handle it. Somebody want to jump in?
We can go around.
Okay. So my first one is marriage is not a fairy tale, honey. It is not at all. In all actuality, I think you have to create your own story, how you want that story to be, from start to finish. And the reality of it is you have to make a lot of adjustments throughout. You get older, things you liked in your 20s, you don't like in your 40s. Things you accepted in your 20s, you don't accept in your 40s. And so there are a lot of things that I'm discovering about myself as well as my husband that I'm just kind of like, I ain't really feeling this. And so it just depends on how you want to handle that, how, you and your mate come out on the other side. But marriage, hey, well, I will take that back. I was going to say that instructions don't come with marriage, but in essence it does if you read scripture or whatever. So that's the hard part. Sometimes your flesh wants you to, you want to knock your husband upside the head or give him some choice words that may not always be Christian like. But it can be a really difficult thing to go through. And so I'm learning how to make my marriage better for me and best for me. And, sometimes it ain't all the glitz and glam. So that's my little first one. I'm gonna move on and let somebody else come in with something.
I have a question before you move on. Like, when was the fairy tale over for you? Like, when did the light click on that, hey, this is not what I thought it was going to be?
I'm not gonna say it's not what I thought it was gonna be. I think for me, I got married at age 24. And so in those first years of marriage, maybe about the first 5 or 6, if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, or if I want to say something, I'm not going to say something because, you don't want to, either upset your mate, or you don't want to, I don't know if it's like, let this person know I'm hella crazy or whatever. So I'm just going to kind of let this thing slide. But to be honest, I think like the fairy tale, the lovey-dovey, probably after about 7 years. I think the first 7 years was a breeze. I'm like, wow, this how marriage is. This is easy. I can do this. I actually remember having a conversation with him I think it was during our 7th year anniversary time. And it was like, can you believe we've been married 7 years? This was pretty sweet. This was kind of easy. I don't know. They call it the 7-year itch. Maybe things start happening after that 7th year. So I think that whole fairy tale thing kind of wore off around there. And I started getting to a point. It's like, okay, he ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. I'm about to start saying what I really feel and doing what I really think. And so I think it's about 7 years for me. How about you?
I think for me, I got married older. I was 33 when I got married. And I think the most difficult part of marriage for me was because I had been single for so long. I had my own house. I was set in my own ways. And that two trying to become one was very difficult. um, me, I didn't realize how independent I was until I got married. And it was like, it bothered me that now I had this whole other person that I had to think about. Like, when I went to, if I wanted to go to the store or something and, he would ask, where you're going. I'm thinking, I'm grown. I don't need to tell you.
Don't be asking me where I'm going.
Are you asking me where I'm going? So it was little things like that where it was like, I really had to have a conversation with myself and be like, Joanna, it's no longer about you and what you want. Now, this is a whole nother person that's here. And I have to be respective of his thoughts and, how he's feeling and what he's doing and, different things like that. So I think that was the most difficult part for me. And that was only because I had got married, at such a late age. What about you, Danya? You being awfully quiet.
Well, I am nobody's wife. I am not married. I was married for 13 years. So y'all talk about when you realized like the fairy tale was over. I didn't have that. Because my marriage was not this elaborate fairy tale of, oh my gosh, he swept me off my feet and da da da. It wasn't this all-consuming fiery relationship. We had what we always referred to as like, crock pot love. You put it on low and it just simmers and it stays warm and it's good and it's like when you come home.
That's a word. That's a word.
When you come home and the house smell good because you had that crock pot. So we had like a slow type love. So there was no the fairy tales over type situation. I got married 8 days after my 24th birthday. And I got divorced 1 week before my 37th birthday. So I'm sorry, not 1 week, 1 month before my 37th birthday. There was never like this point where the fairy tale was over. There was just somebody woke up one day and they didn't love the other person no more. And once that happened, we just weren't married anymore. I mean, so I don't have that.
It was like, can you believe we've been married 7 years? This was pretty sweet.
So it was.
It worked.
It worked for us. It wasn't crazy. I mean, so I don't have the fairy tale was over. Like some of the things that, like, if we want to talk about things that they didn't tell you about marriage, like for me, mine was okay. Because my ex-husband was older than me, and he had a mother whom he cared for, and it went from just being us to us and her. So that was hard for me because I didn't marry her, I married him. So that part was difficult for me. But now that I'm older, if I were to remarry, now I'm in that situation where I have a mother that I care for. And so anybody who comes into my life has to get not only 5 kids, but an old crotchety lady too. So it just, I don't know. So that was one of the things that I wasn't prepared for, being married to him. And then literally we were only married a few months before we started living with my mother-in-law because her health declined. So that was very challenging for us in that first year of marriage. But other than that, I mean, like my ex-husband was like my biggest cheerleader. So we were good. The only thing, like for me, like, I don't know, y'all may not have this. One of the things that we had is like one day somebody gonna wake up and they not gonna want to have sex no more. That's a problem for me. That may not be a problem for every woman, because some women probably be like, whoo, thank you, Jesus. But for me, that was an issue. And that happened in my relationship. And so when that happened, I was just like, boy, you better be glad I love you. So that was, I mean, I can't really think of a whole lot of things that they didn't tell me that was difficult, because like I said, my ex and I, we were good. We had great moments. Like, we laughed together all the time. He was an introvert and I am an extrovert. Like, I have never met a stranger. But he could be in a room full of people and probably say 3 words. So but together we were great because we always were good and we both like to be at home. So, I mean, I didn't have any real issues. He just woke up one day and he didn't let me no more. I don't know how that could ever happen because I'm so freaking awesome, but whatever.
So I don't think it's necessarily things they don't tell you about marriage doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, like, oh, we were in love and then we weren't in love. This is just about growth and growing and becoming 2 people who have a life together. And because you're getting older, because you're growing, and because of, things that, maybe happened in your past, kind of it meets your current, your present, and your future. I mean, for example, you're going to argue over some petty stuff. Okay. I mean, to me, for example, we have 3 bathrooms in my house. Okay. I have my own, he have his own, do we have a guest bathroom? This dude will walk, he's upstairs, walk down the hall, walk down the stairs and go to the guest bathroom. Wait, hold up, player. You ain't cleaning these toilets around here. I'm gonna need you to handle your business in your bathroom, not in the guest. That's why it's called the guest bathroom. So stuff like that, to me, like as a wife, because I'm the one that's doing the cleaning up, that's something that irritates me. But he like, hell, I'm paying the mortgage. I have to be able to shit wherever I want to shit.
And see,
you know what I'm saying? That's petty.
And that's one of those things. Like, Charles and I never argued. Like,
but it ain't really an argument. It's just I'm just letting you know.
I'm just saying, like, you talking about, like, you would argue or you would have disagreements about petty stuff. We ain't had them issues. Let me tell you. We just didn't have them problems. We never literally in 15 years together had an argument until we separated. Never once.
That's different and strange. Juju, do you have any petty things you argue with your husband about? Huh?
Yes.
Why does it have to be strange?
Okay, here's the irony in it. You're divorced. So if you had 0 issues in your marriage and then all of a sudden you're divorced, that doesn't.
We didn't have an argument after we got divorced. We got the first argument we had was when we separated. Like,
but what I'm saying is,
but that was just because, but that's just it. Like, I can only speak from my perspective of maybe he has some issues that I didn't know about, obviously, because we're not married.
If he ain't talking, I guess he might have, yeah.
I ain't had no issues. I mean, he talks to me. He may not talk to nobody else, but he talks to me.
To me, I just find it. It's just, that's just my opinion. I just find it strange or whatever. Petty things. He can open I'm in the kitchen cooking or cleaning up or something, and he's outside working in the yard, but he'll come in the house and leave the door open to the mud room. I mean, flies, dust, hello. Could you close the door, my friend? I'm okay with you coming in and out, but it's like either you stay in or you get out. Why do you have to leave the door? It's just so many crazy things that is super irritating to me. And I'm just like, what in the world is happening here? Is it me? Did he looking at me like I'm crazy? Because I'm irritated that you got the door wide. The people driving past the street, you can look all through my kitchen because the door is wide open. I just don't understand why you can't close the door when you come in. Why does it have to stay open? It's just, but then I was on YouTube one day, and there was this, I used to watch this, I watched these Dhar Man videos, and I think one of the videos, it was like a wife and a husband, he kept doing irritating things like this. And so one day the husband died, and, after the funeral, the wife came home, and, her husband used to leave his laundry on the floor. Well, ain't no more laundry on the floor because it ain't no more husband. So little things that kind of get on your nerves. Now, if the person is no longer with you, you kind of miss those things. And I'm like, I ain't missing him, going downstairs to the guest bathroom taking no dump when I got 3 to 1 to clean it. However, it's just a lot of little petty things that people wouldn't tell you. You're gonna be arguing about this. Everything is glitz and glam. Juju, what's some of your
Well,
petty moments?
I have to be honest. I am the queen of petty.
Petty Betty. Okay.
I am petty Betty, and I think a lot of that comes from because I am like everyone who knows me knows that I am a neat freak. So everything has its place. Now, I don't believe in not living in your house. Like my house is not so pristine that we don't, we tiptoeing through the house. We can't put things down or anything like that. But at the end of the day, my house has to be clean. So the thing that really I was impressed by my husband because he owned his own house, and when I would come over there, it would be spotless. When I say you could eat off the floor, I was like, yes, finally somebody who gets it. Finally someone who gets it. So when we got married, I was thinking, we're two organized people, house gonna be clean, yada yada yada. We get married, and it's like probably the first week after our honeymoon, because we went on a 7-day trip to the mountains. So when we came back, we're settling into our new home or whatever. And, I'm starting to see things like, the laundry basket is here, but the clothes are right next to the laundry basket. They're not actually in the laundry basket. Or I'm starting to see, he's cooking breakfast, but, he didn't put anything back. It's just right there on the cabinet. And I'm like,
Lord help us.
So it was like for me, so one day it's like really, I would get really mad. And finally I was just like, what is the deal? Why can't you just put stuff up where it goes? Or why can't you, when you use something, put it back where it's supposed to go? And I was like, when we were, courting per se, I was like, your house was always clean. And he was like, well, I just did that because you were coming over.
Now he got you. That's your job, boo.
Right. So I kind of felt bamboozled. Like, wait a minute, who are you? What else are you doing just because I was coming over? So that was the thing, is that I'm super neat, and don't get me wrong, my husband's not messy, but just say with me, like, so now I've kind of instituted things like, I may put a basket so he can put his keys in there. As long as he's putting his keys in the basket, I'm okay. What I don't like is the keys outside of the basket, right next to the basket. And that would drive
me crazy. There on purpose.
Right. And sometimes he does do that, just because it irritates me. But so that was pretty much to me is petty. And I remember, so when we go back to like the honeymoon, my husband and I have a unique marriage story per se. I knew my husband for like 8 years, and we were really good friends prior to getting married. But I had never, in the whole 8 years, we went on one date. During that date, like literally, he cooked me dinner. We sat and we talked, and we were set up by a girlfriend of mine. We had mutual friends. So we were set up by them. We went on one date, and he cooked dinner for me. We talked all night. It was like I had never experienced anything like that on a first date. And I just remember, at the end of the day, he was like, you were going to be my wife. And I just busted out laughing because I was like, I always tell people I was winking and blinking at somebody else.
Like winking and blinking.
Winking and blinking at somebody else. And I was just like going on this date just cause, it wasn't like I was interested or anything like that. So I'm thinking, this is a feeler for when the real relationship gets back on track.
Wow.
But out of that, we became really good friends. We would go to the movies, we would go out to eat. I would tell him all my sad stories about other guys. It was like we were really good friends, but I never once looked at him as a mate. Like I never once said, oh, maybe I should date him, or, maybe he's a good person for me. I never saw him in the whole 8 years like that at all. So I was like, just going on with my life or whatever. So I remember I had this one bad breakup that really kind of, I knew that I just thought this person I was going to marry. We were going to have like 2.5 kids and live happily ever after. And, 2.5. And yeah, 2.5. And when it didn't work out, I remember I was just so hurt at the fact that this was not going to work. I was like devastated. And I remember that we went to the movies and we seen this movie called Fireproof. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen Fireproof or whatever. It was a Christian movie, so we went to see that. And I remember just boohooing after and just telling him, about this person and, how, he had broke my heart and how I really knew that this was the end and, yada, yada, yada. And that was the first time that he actually said, Joanna, he's like, I have listened for 8 years how you talked about all these other guys and how they've done you wrong and how, they mistreated you and do all this. He's like, but you never, ever once thought about me. And I thought, why would I think about you? I mean, I'm still like, like, why would you're my friend? Why would I think about you? And
Wow.
so that was the first time that I had even, I mean, I thought he was joking, 8 years ago when he said that. But in reality, he said he really felt like, God had spoken to him that I was his wife. And I was like, just so not even in that zone. I was not probably mature enough or even ready to receive that at that time. So that was like the first time that I was like, well, man, maybe I should, take a look at this guy and see, maybe I should pray and find out if this is the person for me. So, we did that. We kind of like separated. We fasted for 3 days and I really just prayed because my thing was I had told God, I was like, look, Lord, if this is my husband, you're really going to have to do a work in my heart because I do not see him as a mate. I mean, I don't see him. I can't imagine being married to him.
Why is that?
And that it was a lot of things. I had in my mind what I thought my husband would look like. He would be tall, like football player built. He would be
Your husband's tall. You got one. He's tall.
He would be light. So I had all these little superficial things, is what I call them, that I had on my big long list of things that I wanted, and it wasn't wrapped the way I thought it would be. And I think that when women, sometimes we can miss our blessing because we're so caught up in what we think it should look like instead of what character the person actually has. Just say anytime that this is the first person that had ever been a gentleman to me. I mean, the whole 8 years never tried to kiss me, never tried to, was literally just a top-notch person. Treated me with respect, opened doors, bought me things. And he always kept it as a friend. Like he would buy me flowers, but they were never red. They were always like yellow or they were, something. He always respected me. I mean, and I had never experienced that ever. I don't think any of the times that I was dating. So, I mean, I had such a respect for him, but I never saw him as my husband. And
that's different. Cool.
Yeah, and it's like, so that kind of like blew our mind. So, we kind of separated. I was like, well, look, I really need to get before the Lord and just pray about this and make sure this is the right person because I don't have those type of feelings for him. And if he is the one, that the Lord is going to have to do a work in my heart because I cannot even see myself being married to him. So we fasted for 3 days. We didn't talk. We fasted for 3 days and then we came back together. And I really feel like God was telling me that this was the one. And I can remember just like, Lord, you gonna have to do a quick work because I can't marry somebody that I'm not, for one, physically attracted to, and for two, not even, there's no connection other than a friendship there. I couldn't see myself doing that. And when I tell you that it was literally probably about a couple weeks later, man, I could not get that man out of my mind. I was like,
I can see clearer now. The rain is gone.
I was like, okay, Lord. So literally, okay, so this is how quick everything happened. November 17th was the day that we went to the movie. We were engaged December 21st, and then we were married April 11th. So it was just so fast, but I had knew him for 8 years. So I knew, his character. I knew a lot of things about him. Now to get back to what they don't tell you. Just like
we get back around to it.
Getting back to that. I had never lived with my husband. We didn't do anything like that. So when we got married, it was like a shock for me because we were both older. We both had our own houses. We both had our own careers. And then it was like trying to merge all of that. It was hard for me. It was super, super hard for me. So, as I say, I didn't know that he was cleaning up the house just because I was coming over. I thought that was who he was.
He was.
Organized, and to find out that wasn't true, I was like kind of questioning like what other things do I not know about this individual. So yes, it was just a lot.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, interesting story. Your story is well, before we move on, audience members, we can see if you want to put comments in the chat on Facebook. So if you have any questions or you want to chime in or you want to say something, we can see what your comments are. So please feel free to use the chat. Ironically, Joanna, my story is unique as like yours. You knew Zach for 8 years. And my husband and I got married after 6 months. We worked together, and we kind of had a whirlwind relationship that went rather quickly. We met in April and got married in October. And I don't know, for some reason he was just super head over here. He just had to have me, and I mean, I know I'm the bomb.com and everything. However, he is a totally different guy all the way around from people that I've dated. I mean, from physical to spiritual to emotional to everything. I mean, perfect gentleman, sweetheart, giving, kind, flowers. I mean, we worked together. He would say, hey, come to work, 15 minutes early. I want to show you something. Little old me, I'm always late or whatever. So after work, I wouldn't get the surprise. He brought flowers, and the flowers I did because they just suffocated in his car or whatever. But I mean, simple things like that. And it was, I don't know. It was just kind of weird. I mean, he was like, he met me. We worked together. He asked around about me from, I think, one of our supervisors. And from then on, it was like every day he was on it. He was on me, coming up to me, saying something, bringing me little gifts. And I had a card party one time, and I'm like, let me see what this dude is about, see how he interact, because I'm a social butterfly or whatever. I'm more out, like Danya said, I'm extroverted. He's very introverted. He does not move well in a room full of people, but that's me. And so I invited him to my card party. He was like, I'm not coming. I don't play games. So literally, he didn't know how to play cards, but he made it seem like, now I'm gonna let you go and do your thing. And we kind of laugh about that today, but he proposed to me, and I was like, boy, go ahead on about your business. I'm not, when you're ready to get married for real, show me, I'm saying, some airline tickets, because we talked about getting married in Las Vegas, and that was because we are two different religions. And so in order to come to an even median, we decided to go to Las Vegas to get married. And so maybe a week later, he came with those airline tickets, and my eyeballs got big. I was like, oh, so you was
What
real,
you
huh?
do? What you gonna do?
Yeah. I called my mom. I said, look at here. She was like, hey, follow your heart, do what you got to do. And that was in October 19th, 2000. And we'll be celebrating 20 years of marriage this coming October 19th. And so, like I say, it ain't been easy. So another thing that people don't tell you is that I think that your picture of each other changes as time goes on. The way I viewed him then, I view him differently, mostly positive. I mean, we've all grown. He has been an excellent husband and provider and father to our children. I don't think that the things that I think about now that are important, that I had all of that in my mind at that time. I knew that he was kind. I knew that, that we would never, go without. But it's a lot of things that I see now that I kind of look at him differently than I did then. I'm a fighter, and one thing that we're kind of opposite. We're actually very opposite in a lot of things. And so I'm a very strong person. I'm a fighter. He does not like conflict whatsoever at all. He will avoid it like the plague. He's not going to put up a fight about anything. Whatever you want, let's just handle it. And from a standpoint, certain things I think that's good. And when it's something that I want and I want it my way. However, I think when a person has that kind of personality, when I need you to fight, I don't really know if he gonna fight because that's just not his personality, right? And so you kind of take the good and the bad. And so I talked to him about that. It's like, listen, I know you're not a fighter because you don't like conflict, but at some point, if something really goes down, I'm gonna need to know that you will fight, And so I kind of see him differently in certain, areas of our lives together. And so I'm kind of trying to work on the things that I see negatively and asking him about those, if he sees me differently in a negative light, what is it that I can do to, turn those negative views or thoughts into positive ones. You guys have any, when you were married, did you see your mates or your spouses differently at certain points in your relationship? You're back.
Oh, my bad. For me, like my ex was like the catalyst for me doing so many things. And he's very, like I said, he was a very introverted person, and he was totally content with where he was in life. But it was like all he ever wanted from me was to achieve more, because I had all these goals and these dreams, and he would like push me to do that. Hey, well, do this. Well, if you do this, do this, do this. So those are some of the things I could never understand why he didn't have those same aspirations of wanting to do more. So that was one of the things that I just never got. But like, he always pushed me to do more. The only other thing like that, it wasn't a negative or a positive. It was just funny to me. Like, this man was definitely
I'll
afraid
blame
of
him. Me
snakes.
too.
No, like me too.
And wait, it was funny because like, he's definitely afraid of snakes, and I'm definitely afraid of
That's
birds.
good to know.
Any kind of bird.
Right.
I don't care. Kind of person. So like, we would take our kids to the zoo, and at the zoo they had like a reptile house, and then they had a bird house. So one of us would have to walk through the reptile house, and the other one would have to go in the bird house because it wasn't going down. So it was just like, we had like weird things that were totally different from each other, but we always had fun. So, but the only thing I could never understand is why he didn't have like the drive and courage that he would instill in me to go for my goals and dreams. He just never had that, and I never understood why.
I think for me, one of the challenges is not because, just say, I am definitely not the person he married 11 years ago, and he is definitely not the person I married 11 years ago. But the challenge for me is respecting the new person that is developing and growing with the person instead of growing apart from them. And that's going to take work, because now I have to, it's like I got to date my husband over again to find out who this new person is and how and how we can form some kind of common bond with that. So that has always been a challenge to me, is just accepting the person that he is now, embracing that, supporting that, and growing with him instead of growing apart from him. But one of the challenges that I have found too is that and I don't know, did any of you guys go to marriage counseling? Because we went to like 12 weeks of marriage counseling, and there was still a whole bunch of stuff that I did not know prior to marriage. And I thought we had covered all this. I mean, we had counseling by my pastor, we had counseling by his pastor. So we were kind of making sure we put everything out on the table. But there was still a lot that was missed. I think one of the biggest things from us is our backgrounds. He was raised one way and I was raised another way. And it was like, we didn't talk about what role each of us would play in a marriage. So, and I'll give you an example. Now, everybody knows I am not the best cook. My family is not going to starve, but if you're waiting for somebody to go in there and whip up some homemade stuff and put their foot in it, I'm not your girl.
He ain't marry you for your cooking, girl.
I can do some things really well, but that's just not me. So, and the funny thing is, my husband is a better cook. I mean, that boy can throw down. He can cook pretty much anything. His mama raised him well. He's a great
mama.
But the expectation was, because we were married, that I would take over that responsibility. And it's like, I I was not cooking before we got married, and now you expect me to come in here and whip you up this 4-course meal. That's not gonna happen. So that was a bone of contention, in the early part of our marriage. But not only that, I felt like he kind of made fun of me because I could not cook. So that was an issue too. It made me not want to even learn or to even try. So it kind of hurt me in a way because I felt like, wow, I wasn't cooking before you married me. Now you marry me and I still can't cook it. Now it's funny to you. So, it was just different things. But when I look back on it, his mom cooked for them. And that's what he expected. And we didn't discuss what that expectation would look like in a marriage. So I think, if you're going to get married, you need to, it's not the big things that ruin a marriage. I think it's the small little things that grow and grow into this huge big thing. And now we're talking about divorce. So it was just little things like that, just different expectations that we had. I'll give you another example. My dad always took care of pretty much everything. The car, he always washed my car, even when I didn't live there. Like literally, when I didn't live at home, my dad would come to my house. He would take my car. He would vacuum it out. He would clean it. And I didn't even live there. So it's like that expectation is that if my car gets dirty, my husband is supposed to clean it for me. He's supposed to vacuum it out. He's supposed to make sure it's okay. Anytime that I was on a road trip, my dad made sure he checked the tires. He made sure, everything was good to go. The lights, the, windshield wiper fluid was in there. So the expectation that I have, if I say I'm about to go out of town, you better go check my car and make sure it's good to go for me, to go on this trip. But it was like we both had these unspoken expectations, and then we were mad when the other person didn't do them. And then it became this big issue when in reality, he didn't know what my expectation was, and I didn't know what his expectation was until, we were in a all-out argument. So I think for me, I have learned that you have to, if there isn't an expectation that you have the other person, they need to know that. And y'all need to discuss on how you're going to deal with that, because that can cause contention in a marriage.
That is super important. Again, I think at the beginning of a marriage, it's like you're kind of caught up in the thought about marriage, what you think marriage represents. People have these big elaborate weddings, and sometimes the marriage don't last for 5 seconds or whatever. I don't know. I don't think that we identified roles either, but I will tell you this quick little funny story. The day we got back from Las Vegas after getting married, so prior to the marriage, I mean, he was just doing, all these little sweet things, and I'll bring you something to eat. You don't have to cook, yada 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 yada. We walked in that door, honey, after the wedding, and he turned into like super husband. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. I said, hey, pump your brakes a little bit. We still in the honeymoon. Listen, I appreciate the responsibility level that you have and your role that you take very serious as a husband. I'm gonna need you to slow down, player. Please just hold up a little bit. I mean, it was no more fun. We didn't got married. The fun is over. Okay, we gonna do this. I mean, he was very, very regimented, and I'm just kind of like, ooh, wait. It was just too much, too fast, and I'm like, listen, give me a minute. I'm still trying to just hold up a minute. We never really identified roles or whatever. Now, my husband can't cook. Now, his father and his mother were cooks. So I don't understand how he didn't pick up on that. And I don't know if I learned that because my mom was a cook, this is what she did, and so I've always wanted to be a wife, and I always wanted to be everything that I could be as a wife. Part of, I think he would never admit this, but I see it in myself. My husband, I think his idea of, a wife is that, that housewife that, she has an apron on and she's around doing this. I am that girl when it's that time for me, but I am super independent. I'm going to always work. I'm always trying to make sure that I handle things in the house. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm not a burden on my husband. And I think part of my problem is that I'm so independent that I forget how to be dependent as a wife. I never want to be a burden on my husband. And I think that over the course of time, he wanted me to be the dependent person, but I wasn't. That wasn't me. And now that I want to be dependent in certain areas, it's almost like, how do you switch that over? How do I become the, oh, can you do this, or I really need that, or whatever. And so I'm learning that we both will change over time, and that's something else that maybe they haven't told us. You both will change or whatever. Hopefully it's for the better, and you grow together in that change that you do. But it's not always that. And so communication is very important in a marriage. When you notice that somebody is changing, whether it's you or your spouse or whatever, somebody has to have the courage and say, hey, we need to have a conversation because I'm noticing a shift in this area or whatever. And so, we need to, kind of get this, together or whatever. But another thing we had always said is that we wouldn't go to bed angry. And we started that off at the beginning in the first few years. After a while, that wore off because I am not talking to you. I don't want to talk to you, and I ain't. And so we going to bed mad tonight. And if you don't nip that in the bud, it can turn into, all the time. And so, I think you have to learn how to fight with your mate. That way, it's healthy. I don't know if a fight is healthy, but you have to find a healthy way to get your point across and not make it negative, because it's very easy for anger to fester into something bigger, and then it becomes an issue if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't have that background of communicating. Have either one of you guys kind of thought about, this is so beautiful, so wonderful, we're never going to go to bed angry, we're going to have our discussion, talk about it, and we're going to kiss each other goodnight, we wake up in the morning and there's breakfast in bed with some orange juice and a rose and all that good stuff?
I think I have definitely tried that and failed miserably several times. It's a nice ideal. It's a great concept, but you actually got to do it. And
I never tried it. You messed up, bro. I'll let you in a couple of days.
I actually just saw a meme on Facebook today, and it said, well, I apologized to him in my mind. If he didn't hear me, that was his problem. I cannot tell you how many times I have, thought that or said that. Well, he knows I'm sorry. No, he doesn't, because you ain't say it. I think for me, I have got to, first of all, because I have a military background, because I tend to be very assertive in things, I have got to be really careful about how I talk to my husband, because it can come across as me, putting him down, or being like trying to be the authority figure or whatever, or trying to, be in control of the situation. And that's not the case at all. So I have to watch what I say. One of the things, I read this book, and it's called the Covenant Marriage by Johnny. Is it Greg Chapman? Yeah, Gary Chapman. And it was really good. But that's how it had me think about our conversations in a different light. Not thinking of them as arguments, but thinking them as heated fellowship. I'm coming together with my husband, and we're fellowshipping on a conversation that we do not agree about. We still love each other. We still want to remain married. So we're not arguing, but we're having heated fellowship. So that's what I like to say now, is that we're having heated fellowship about some things. But it made me look at how I communicate with my husband, and how, because once you put things out there in the open, you can't take those things back. So if I say something flippant because I'm mad at him, guess what? That's going to stick with him. And he's going to be thinking about that every time we get into a heated fellowship, situation. Remember what she said? She probably thought that for real, blah, blah, blah. And in my mind, I'm just saying that to get him back because I'm mad at him. Not because I actually mean it, but because I wanted to hurt him at the time when I said it. So what I am learning is to be very, very careful about how I talk to my husband and what comes out of my mouth, because you can't take that stuff back. And what I'm learning is, if I have those deep things in my heart, then I need to deal with myself, because what comes out of your mouth is actually what's in your heart. So we're thinking those negative things, divorce, hatred, all of these things, just resentment, all of that stuff, that's a heart issue. And if you don't take care of that within yourself, that's going to affect your marriage.
And Lord, don't text it. Woo, don't text it. Lord, have mercy.
Remember on August 25th, 1974, that you said this?
My husband has told me he has kept text messages, and I'm like, dude, you shouldn't do that. So I don't angry text no more. That's just I don't do that anymore. Well, I would say I would bring up one final point, and I think that what I wasn't told is that marriage will go through phases. Again, I think it all comes down to your age, your environment, what you invite into, your life, your marriage, the communication you have or don't have, how you and your husband, kind of get along. Marriage and the phases can be positive or negative, but the key is that you want to deal with those negative ones. And if there are some positive changes, how can those positive areas trickle down into, some other area or whatever? Nobody is perfect. No marriage is perfect. If anybody tells you that marriage is perfect, that is a lie. That is a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell, because we are imperfect people, and we're going to do imperfect things. You try to make things positive and the best because you love each other. However, those marriages will go through some different phases, and it's up to you and your mate to make those different phases, turn to positive if they're negative. You guys have any other parting or anything else you guys want to say about the things that they don't tell you about marriage?
Oh, you're on mute.
It'd be nice if we can hear you. We can't hear you now.
Still can't hear you.
Oh.
She said, "Oh no." Yo, she's like, "I got nothing."
Is your volume up?
That's weird.
And your little mute.
It's saying you're on mute. Say something now. I don't know. That's weird.
Can you unmute her?
She's unmuted now.
Oh, she's unmuted now?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, Joanna, you want to close us out? Danya, type what you want to say in the chat.
Right, we'll read it out loud, Danya. I know for me, another thing that I kind of let's say struggled with is let's see, just look, there's so much. Like all there's so much is because it was me. But another thing that I kind of struggled with is just for me, it's just balance. Balancing being a wife, mother, balancing the marriage, trying to find the proper place. Like, I am a Christian, and I believe that God first, then your husband, then your children, and then your job and everything else. But sometimes that can get, taken out of balance because you have kids who are small who need to be cared for, and sometimes you tend to forget your husband. Or sometimes you got so much going on at work that you tend to be focused on that, and you forget, that you have a spouse over here who has certain needs and stuff. So balance has also been a big thing for me, just putting things in priority, putting things in perspective in the order that I believe that they should be in, and respecting that. I know for me anyway, because I got married later in life, I spent my 20s and 30s trying to figure out who I was. And then when I got married, it's like, oh, I'm starting to figure this thing out. But now I have new responsibilities. So one thing marriage has taught me is that marriage is not so much about you being happy. It is a ministry. It is a ministry for the world. It is a ministry. You are a representation of, God being married to the body of Christ. So it became something completely different for me. It's not about whether or not my spouse makes me happy. Now, let me say this. He is supposed to make you happy. I'm
Put
not
that out
saying
there.
it's not supposed to make you happy, but I'm saying it's so much more than happiness. It's a responsibility that we have. And when you look at it from that perspective, it means so much more than, he's not doing something that make me happy. Well, yes, he should make you happy, but how, what are you doing? And a lot of times, I have spent a lot of time complaining about what my husband is doing, what he's not doing, and all these things. And then I'm in prayer, and God is like, look, here's your laundry list of all the things I need you to change about yourself. So what I notice is that it's not really so much about my husband. God works on me because there's some things in me that he is constantly showing, and it's affecting my marriage because I haven't dealt with them. So I think at some point, stop focusing on what the other person's not doing and focus on how you need to get yourself together. What are those areas that you need to work on? And for me, a lot of that was selfishness. Just like I said, I got married later in life. So I had my own house, I had my own career, I had everything. I was so selfish, like I didn't want to release that control. And literally, God had to move me out when we got married. We got married, and like 3 weeks later, we moved to Tallahassee. I did not know anybody. I had no friends. I had no job. And literally, that was a proving time for me where God had to work on me in my selfishness. And if he had not done that, I really don't believe that I would be married today, because I was so like, you're not going to tell me what to do with my money. You're not going to tell me what to do with my career. I'm not answering to you. It's like,
Girl,
yes,
I don't
we're
know
married.
if you was ready at all.
It's like we're married, but you don't own me. You don't control me. I saw submission as being this big dirty word. And I'm not saying submission is not you being a doormat and having your husband walk over you and disrespect you and all that. But I'm saying submitting in the order of God, your husband, having respect for your husband as the head of the house. Things like that. That was where I had the issues because I had controlled that for so long in my life. Now I have this husband's coming in and he's trying to make decisions. And I'm like, no, we're not about to do that. you know? And it was like, I totally did not have any respect for his position as the head of the house. So God really had to strip some things from me. And I think he used that when we moved here and I had to start basically from scratch with no job, no friends, no family. And really, it was just us. We didn't have anybody there. So we didn't have anybody that we can come to when we were going through anything. It was just us. And that kind of really strengthened our marriage and helped us build up, the relationship that we had. And if we had not done that, I don't think we would have been together today. Because I was a hot mess. I thought I was saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, and then I got married. And I was like, you a sinner. You need to get saved and baptized and all that all over again. Because there was just so much in me that I didn't even know I had in me.
Well, God bless you, honey, because it's rough. But Dinah's comment was have honest conversations with your mate. If you can't be who you truly are with the person you're married to, then reevaluate the situation. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep. That's deep
Yeah,
right there.
that is deep.
That's very deep. Again, it's like with that comment or whatever. I think that in reality, we always put the cart before the horse, because the things that, basically you just talked about in the comment that Danya just made, you kind of supposed to know who you're married to before you marry them. But we always do. I got married after 6 months, so there's no way I could have known all of who my husband was. But I think an important takeaway is that we should, when it comes to marriage, you should follow the design that God has laid out for marriage, and how your mates are chosen, and how each person is what role you're supposed to play in your marriage. If you don't have God first, nothing is going to happen anyways, because we're two imperfect people. And so with the help of the Lord, he can help guide us through that. If you don't have the Lord in your marriage, Lord, it could be hard or whatever. So if that's all that you guys have, we didn't get any comment. Well, we did get a couple comments on Facebook, but this has been recorded. And so as audience members, you guys can watch the replay. As always, you can send comments. We always want to hear what your comments are. As usual, please like, share, subscribe. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. Did I miss somebody? Spotify. So you can pick us up anywhere. You can listen to us on any of those, or you can watch us on YouTube. And so if y'all have nothing else, we're going to say peace and hair grease. Until next time,
Bye,
thank you guys.
guys.
Bye-bye.